In Sufi psychology, the human self is viewed as a deep and layered spiritual reality. Among these layers, the seer holds a central role because it represents the most intimate dimension of the soul's relationship with Allah. Exploring the concept of seer helps us understand how Sufis interpret spiritual awareness, inner transformation, and the journey toward divine closeness. This section sets the foundation for understanding how the inner self functions and why the seer is considered one of its most significant elements. In Sufism, the human self is viewed as multi-layered. At the surface, we deal with the ego and worldly desires. But as we go deeper, we discover more refined layers that bring us closer to spiritual clarity. The Lataif help describe these layers, from the most basic to the most hidden. The nafs is the lowest layer, the ego that pulls a person toward desires. Above it is the qalb, the spiritual heart, which begins to receive guidance when purified. Then comes the ruh, the divine spirit placed by Allah, which awakens a sense of longing for Him. At the center of deeper awareness lies the seer. This layer is called the secret because it is the place where the servant receives subtle inspiration, sincerity, and intimate awareness of Allah. The seer is purer than the heart and more hidden than the ruh. When the seer is awakened, the believer feels clarity, inner peace, and a strong connection with God. Beyond the seer is the khafi, the hidden consciousness known only to Allah, and the akhfa, the deepest and most mysterious layer, where divine mysteries are kept. Together, the system of Lataif guides a person from the lowest self towards spiritual refinement, with seer functioning as the inner point where divine meanings settle and where true sincerity is formed. The seer plays several important roles in Sufi psychology. It is known as the seat of sincerity, where our intentions become pure and free from pretension. The seer also serves as a channel of divine inspiration, allowing the heart to receive subtle guidance and clarity. Through its awakening, a person experiences increased spiritual awareness, becoming more conscious of their inner state and their relationship with Allah. It also helps reduce ego-centered thoughts, softening the influence of pride and self-focus. The seer allows a person to recognize Allah's presence in their life in a deeper, quieter way, and it acts as a point of inner witnessing, where one becomes more reflective, mindful, and spiritually grounded. One of the clearest signs that the seer is awakening is when dhikr becomes effortless and enjoyable. Instead of forcing the heart to remember Allah, the remembrance flows naturally and brings a sense of calm. Another sign is a strong attraction toward truth and sincerity. A person begins to dislike anything false or superficial, and their inner compass becomes aligned with honesty and purity. Lastly, an awakened seer allows a person to distinguish between ego whispers and genuine spiritual intuition. They can sense when something comes from the nafs and when it comes from a place of clarity and sincerity. This inner discernment shows that the heart is becoming more refined and spiritually aware. Next, we move on to the next part. Firstly, seer is not a form of magical power. It doesn't give a person supernatural abilities or access to the unseen. Instead, it is a spiritual subtlety that awakens through sincerity and purification, not through miracles. Secondly, some people believe that an awakened seer automatically means a person has become a wali or a saint. This is not true. Awakening the seer reflects inner clarity and humility, not spiritual status or special rank. Another misunderstanding is the tendency to over-spiritualize mental health symptoms. Feeling of anxiety, emotional numbness, or intrusive thoughts are not signs of an activated seer. True awakening brings peace and stability, not confusion or distress. Lastly, some assume that seer contains secret information or hidden message. Despite the word meaning secret, The seer is not a source of secret codes or predictions. It is a spiritual faculty, not a channel of private revelations. By clearing these misconceptions, we can appreciate the seer as it truly is, a quiet, inward capacity that deepens one's awareness of Allah without exaggeration or distortion. In today's fast-paced world, the concept of seer remains deeply relevant. First, seer helps us maintain spiritual balance despite constant distractions. When the inner heart is awake, a person can stay grounded even in a noisy environment. Second, it strengthens ikhlas or sincerity in worship. A refined seer keeps the intention pure, allowing acts of worship to come from the heart, not from habit or pressure. Third, seer increase emotional intelligence and self-awareness. By understanding the movements of the inner self, a person becomes more mindful of their emotions, reactions, and spiritual state. And finally, seer builds inner stability. In a world that often feels unstable and stressful, a cultivated seer gives a person calmness, clarity, and a strong spiritual center. In summary, the concept of seer in Sufi psychology reveals the innermost layer of the human self, where a person's soul connects deeply with Allah. The system of lataif, from the nafs to the akhfa, illustrates the multi-layered journey of the spiritual growth, self-purification, and inner awareness. Recognizing the signs of an awakened seer helps us to understand true spiritual development, while clarifying common misconceptions prevents over-spiritualization or misinterpretation. Overall, studying seer reminds us that spiritual maturity requires both disciplined practice and sincere inner reflection, leading to tranquility, humility,